The Kinyagia case, Kenya's digital repression crisis. Exactly 10 days after his disappearance, Ndiangui Kinyagia remains missing, and Kenya's democracy stands at a crossroads. The case of the 35-year-old tech entrepreneur and digital activist has become a defining moment in Kenya's struggle between democratic expression and authoritarian control. The Vanishing Act. On June 21, 2025, as Kenya prepared to commemorate the first anniversary of its deadly anti-finance bill protests, Kinyagia simply vanished. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance read like a script from Kenya's darkest chapters of state repression. Armed operatives in unmarked vehicles, masked faces, and a family left with nothing but unanswered questions and an inventory of seized electronics. The operation lasted nearly 9 hours. Approximately 10 vehicles surrounded his Kinu residence. The operatives came prepared with technology to break into his apartment, conduct a thorough search, and remove specific items, including laptops, phones, passports, and identification documents. Crucially, no warrant was presented during the raid. The inflammatory blueprint. 4 days before his disappearance, Kinyagia had posted what authorities later described as inflammatory material, a meticulously crafted timetable for the June 25th protests that read more like a revolutionary manifesto than a peaceful demonstration schedule. The document, which garnered over 1 million views, outlined plans that went far beyond typical protest activities, marching to State House, lowering the presidential standard, declaring a new republic, and swearing in a transition council. The timetable began with prayers and moments of silence for fallen protesters, but escalated to include what appeared to be a systematic plan for regime change. It was political theater with real-world implications, a digital activist's gambit that would ultimately seal his fate, a pattern of digital repression. Kinyagia's case isn't an anomaly. It's part of a disturbing escalation in Kenya's crackdown on digital dissent. The numbers tell a stark story. Kenya recorded 55 enforced disappearances in 2024, a staggering 450% increase from just 10 cases in 2023. Of these, 45 were suspected to be the work of police officers. The spike coincides with Kenya's youth-led protests against the Finance Bill 2024, with June recording the highest number of disappearances during the peak of demonstrations. Young people aged 19 to 34 have borne the brunt, with 18 disappearing in 2024 alone compared to just 5 in 2023. The state's digital surveillance apparatus has been steadily expanding. In June 2025, just weeks before Kinyagia's disappearance, Kenya's National Assembly approved an additional 50 million shillings for the DCI to procure an Optimus 3.0 social media monitoring tool. This allocation came even as the same committee recommended cuts to education, healthcare, and flood control projects, a telling prioritization of surveillance over social services. The legal battlefield Justice Chacha Mwita has emerged as an unlikely protagonist in this saga, repeatedly ordering Inspector General Douglas Kanja and DCI Director Mohammed Amin to produce Kinyagia, dead or alive. His frustration is palpable. There is no way a Kenyan will get out of his home and vanish from this world without a trace. It is not humanly possible. The judge's orders expose the absurdity of the state's position. While DCI Director Amin admits his officers raided Kinyagia's home and seized electronic devices, he maintains the activist is not in police custody and urges him to surrender to the nearest police station. It's a Kafkaesque scenario where the state simultaneously denies holding someone while admitting to investigating them for their social media activities. Today, July 1st, both the Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja and DCI Director Mohammed Amin failed to appear in court as ordered, representing a direct challenge to judicial authority and the rule of law. Justice Chacha Mwita had explicitly ordered them to either produce Kinyagia or provide a satisfactory explanation by 11 a.m., but neither appeared. The Law Society of Kenya's habeas corpus petition has become more than a legal proceeding. It's a test of Kenya's constitutional order. The broader context, the recent false alarm involving an injured man found in Ruaka, initially speculated to be Kinyagia, highlights the public's anxiety and the state's silence. The man was later identified as Jackson Njuguna Wambui, a local clothes vendor, but the incident underscores the climate of fear surrounding enforced disappearances. Kinyagia's disappearance must be understood within Kenya's evolving digital authoritarianism. The controversial Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act has created a chilling effect on online expression. The law criminalizes the publication of false information without defining what constitutes falsity, effectively making the government an arbiter of truth. Digital rights activists warn of heightened surveillance on online platforms where activists know their every word and move is being monitored. The recent death of teacher and blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody, following his arrest for allegedly defaming Kenya's deputy police chief on social media, demonstrates the deadly consequences of this digital crackdown. The technology factor. Kinyagia's background as a software developer and founder of ARI Limited adds another layer to his targeting. His technical expertise made him particularly dangerous to state authorities, someone who understood digital systems well enough to potentially evade surveillance while mobilizing others effectively. The seizure of his electronic devices wasn't just about gathering evidence. It was about accessing his digital networks, understanding his methods, and potentially compromising other activists in his circles. In Kenya's emerging surveillance state, technical knowledge has become both a powerful tool for resistance and a dangerous liability. The unanswered questions. Exactly 10 days after Kinyagia's disappearance, fundamental questions remain unanswered. Why would someone planning to disappear voluntarily leave behind their passports and other essential documents? Why would DCI officers conduct such an elaborate operation if the target wasn't home? How does someone under active police surveillance simply vanish without a trace? The state's narrative that Kinyagia disappeared on his own and should surrender to police strains credibility. If he were truly free to surrender, why the need for such an extensive raid on his home? If police were genuinely concerned about his welfare, why not issue a public appeal rather than deny involvement? Implications for democracy. The Kinyagia case represents a watershed moment for Kenyan democracy. It demonstrates how digital technologies that once promised to democratize information and empower citizens are being weaponized by the state to identify, monitor, and silence dissent. The case also reveals the limitations of Kenya's legal system when confronted with state security apparatus operating outside constitutional bounds. Despite clear judicial orders, senior police officials have repeatedly defied court summons, suggesting a breakdown in the separation of powers. The chilling effect. Perhaps most troubling is the broader chilling effect on digital activism in Kenya. The message is unmistakable. Cross certain lines in your online activism, and you risk disappearing without a trace. This psychological warfare against digital dissent may prove more effective than any cybercrime law in silencing opposition voices. Young Kenyans, who have been at the forefront of recent protests and digital organizing, now face an impossible choice: remain silent in the face of injustice, or risk becoming the next Ndiangui Kinyagia. International silence. Kenya's digital crackdown is occurring against the backdrop of its international partnerships and donor relationships. The timing is particularly significant given Kenya's leadership of the UN peacekeeping mission in Haiti and its position as a key Western ally in East Africa. Yet international partners have remained largely silent about the escalating human rights violations. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has documented 82 cases of abductions since June 2024, with at least 29 people still missing. The Missing Voices Coalition, which has been documenting these abuses since 2019, represents one of the few institutional mechanisms for accountability, but their work occurs in an increasingly hostile environment. The price of digital courage. As Ndiangui Kinyagia remains missing, his fate unknown, his case embodies the dangerous intersection of digital activism and state power in contemporary Kenya. A tech entrepreneur turned accidental revolutionary, he discovered that in Kenya's emerging surveillance state, Some tweets carry a price far higher than their character count might suggest. His disappearance serves as both a warning and a rallying cry, a stark reminder that the digital tools that empower citizens to organize and resist can also expose them to unprecedented risks. In Kenya's ongoing struggle between democratic aspirations and authoritarian reflexes, Kinyagia's empty apartment in Kinu stands as a testament to the courage required for true digital citizenship and the price that courage sometimes demands. The question that haunts Kenya today isn't whether Ndiangui Kinyagia will be found, but whether a country that can make its critics simply vanish can still call itself a democracy. The answer may determine not just Kinyagia's fate, but the future of democratic expression in Kenya's digital age. Until the state breaks its silence and provides credible answers, the shadow of enforced disappearance will continue to haunt Kenya's digital activists and the nation's conscience.